Hi folks, I'm going to give you an introduction to QGIS in this video. We're going to start from the very basics and work our way up so that you'll be able to add data and do a little bit of analysis with that data by the time we finish this tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, I already have QGIS installed. I'm using version 3.16. You can check your version with check QGIS version, and you can see here that I'm running the most current version. You don't need to run the most current version, but that's how you can check it. Okay, so let's get started with just laying out our user interface a little bit. So if you've just started with QGIS, your interface may look a little bit different, and that is okay. I'm going to show you how you can get it looking like mine if you want to, or how you can customize it to your own personal needs. So first, let's start with these windows and these panels over here. You'll see this one says layers at the bottom, and I have another one that says browser. And with the browser, I can access all the files that are connected, that are on my device or connected to my device. Now, if you don't see the browser window, you can get it fairly easily. So the way you can do this is if you go to View, and if you scroll down to Panels, you'll notice that I have Browser and Layers selected. If you don't have these selected, you can turn them on or off. So I'll just show you if I turn off Browser here. My browser has now disappeared from the sidebar. I can go back over to View, go over to Panels, and turn the browser back on, and it adds right here. Now I can also drag these around, so I can take my browser out, and I can drag it out over here. It also grabs my layers. Okay, so we can drop that in there. It makes it go to the top. We can drag it out. We can readjust the size. We can have it free floating. I want to put it back over so it's docked on the side. I'll drag it and it will stick in there. Okay. You might have yours so that it's split, and you can do that as well. You can split these up and drag them and drop them into different places. I like mine set up like this, so I am going to keep it like this for now. Okay, so that gets that set up. The other thing that we'll go over real quick, we're not going to use any toolbars right now, but you might find this useful later, is if we go back into View and we scroll down to Toolbars, you can see the toolbars I have selected here. And we'll get into these a little bit more a little farther into the tutorial, but this is where you can turn toolbars on if you don't have them. Okay? Alright, so that gets us set up with just some of the basics of QGIS. The next thing I want to do is show you how you can load a base map or a very simple map. Now this is very easy to do, so go to the Browser tab. And in the Browser tab, you should have an XYZ tiles option here, and when you click on that, you should see OpenStreetMap, which comes with QGIS. Now we can right-click on that, and we can click Add Layer to Project. You can also click and drag it on, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But let's add that layer to the project, and now you can see we have a map of the world. When I go over to the Layers tab, OpenStreetMap is there. If I want to remove it, I can right-click it and remove layer and say OK. Let's go back to Browser. If I click on this and drag it in, you can see that it adds that in just the same. Okay, very simple. Let me zoom in here, and we can take a look at the United States. You can see we get more levels of detail as we zoom in closer. And like I said, this is the OpenStreetMap, which is a base map that you can access easily with QGIS. Okay, so that gets us a base map. Let's go and I'll show you how we can add some other data, specifically some vector data. Now these data files you're not going to have available to you, but you can do this with any vector data you have. If you want the specific files I'm using, you can go to opensourceoptions.com and check out the QGIS for Beginners course. That course will give you all the data that I'm using in this tutorial here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Browser tab. I'm going to go find a folder that has data. In this case, in my C drive, in my QGIS folder, I have a vector file here. And if I drag this out, you can see that I have a number of shape files here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just add in this United States shapefile that has all the states. I'll say OK, and you can see that I have now added in that shapefile that gives the outlines of each of the states in the United States. If I zoom out, you can see we have Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and some of the other U.S. territories. Now let's talk about the information we can access with a shapefile like this. So this file has basically, we'll consider two parts to this file. The first is the information that gives us the outlines. And so we can see those outlines here. The outlines are a collection of points that make a polygon. The second part is data associated with those outlines. And I can access those data by opening the attribute table. So if I right click on this feature here and go to attribute table, I can get information about each state. Okay, and a lot of this we're not going to worry too much about, but you can see here we have an identifier, a geographic identifier. We have the state USPS abbreviation, so Alabama, Alaska, ALAK. We have the name of each state. And we have some other information here that's not very useful to us, but this gives us basic information about each state. And so if I want to use that information to link to another table or to display labels, I can do that. Now, if I don't know the information about a specific state from the table, or if I have a lot of features and I want to find it for just one, that's easy to do. We can use the identify tool for that. So the identify tool is here. It has an arrow with a blue eye, and I'll zoom in on that for you a little bit. Okay, and if you don't have this toolbar, we can find that toolbar. So this is the attributes toolbar. So if you don't see this attributes toolbar here, what you can do is you can go, remember, to view, to toolbars, and make sure you select attributes. Make sure it has a check mark next to it. Now, just to make you aware, you may not see the toolbar in the same place that I have it. But once you find that identify tool, you can click on it. And now you see we have a black eye next to our pointer. And I'll zoom in on that in case you can't see it so well. You can see my pointer with the black eye next to it. Now, whenever I click on a state, it's going to open up a new window over here with the results. And it's going to give me the information about whichever feature I click. So here you can see that this is the state of Wyoming, and I get the ID and the name. And I can come down and I can click this one, and that's Missouri. Okay, and so we can get all the information of a feature by clicking on that feature. So let's go ahead and I'm going to close. Oh, and one thing, if you want to get rid of the red boundary, there's this clear results. We'll just click on that there, and now the results are cleared. Okay, now I want to show you another way to add a shapefile just in case you have troubles dragging it in for some reason. So let's go ahead and remove this shapefile and add it in a different way. So I'll click remove layer. Okay, the other way is using this toolbar here, the manage layers toolbar. You can see we have this button here, which is the add vector layer. And if I come over and click that, it's kind of like this line, a line with a V with a plus sign next to it. I'm going to click on that. And it's going to open up the data source manager. So I'm going to go to source vector data sets. I'm going to click the ellipses, the three dots, and I'm going to navigate to my QGIS folder, to my vector folder, and I'm going to add in the shapefile. Now, while we're here, let's talk about shapefiles a little bit. Shapefiles are a file you're going to commonly use for GIS data. And it can get a little confusing because you'll notice here, let me go to my states file. This is the file that I added in. And I'm going to select all of these. You can see that these all have the same file name with a different file extension. I have a .cpg, a dbf, a prj, an shp, two different XML files, and an shx. Now, I won't go through what each of these are. I can give you a little bit of background on each one. The dbf is the database file that stores information for the attribute table. The prj stores the projection of the data set, and the shp stores the actual points that make up the feature geometry. And so this shapefile, we call it a shapefile even though it's composed of In this case, we have 7 different files there. And shape files, I think, require a minimum of 3 or 4, but they can have other files to index and to store symbology data. The reason I say that is we only need to add this SHP file. If we add the file with the extension .shp, QGIS automatically indexes to the other files in the correct manner. So we just need to go ahead and click on this .shp file and click open. And we don't need to worry about anything here. We will just click add. And we can close this, and you can see that our file has been added again. You'll notice it's a different color. That's okay. QGIS just randomly selects a color for each added layer. Now, once again, if you don't have this toolbar, which is the Manage Layers toolbar, you can go to View, Toolbars, turn on the Manage Layers toolbar. Okay, let's remove this, and I want to show you one more way that you can do this. So we'll remove Layer. And the third way is to go to Layer, click on Data Source Manager, and click on the plus vector tab up here on the side. And as you can see, we already added a layer here, and we can just click, we can go back and select our layer again this way, which is the CB State, CB 2018 US State 500K.shp. We'll open that, we can add, we can close, and there we have our states layer added back in. Okay, that part's pretty simple. Let's move on and talk about selecting features. Selection is an important thing that's going to limit the features or limit analyses to certain features that we have chosen. And right now I'm just going to show you how to do some basic selections. We'll talk about that a little more as we get on with this tutorial. I'm going to show you 2 ways to select. The first way is we're going to open the attribute table. So right click on the layer, go to open attribute table. I'm going to shrink this down so that you can also see the states here. And I'm going to sort this. So I'm going to talk about sorting a little bit first. I can sort by any column just by clicking on it. So you notice when I click on it, it gives me an arrow that shows if it's sorting ascending or descending. If I click again, it will sort descending and ascending. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the state of Alabama. Now to select that, I'm going to come over to the left side of the table where it gives the row number, and I'm going to click on that row number, and it's going to highlight that row, and you can see that on the map it highlights Alabama. Now when you do this, there's a good chance that your color on Alabama is going to be yellow or a different color than the cyan that I have selected here. And that's okay. The default QGIS selection color, I believe, is yellow. I've changed it to cyan because it's not a color that I use for symbology very often. Okay, so that gives us one row that's selected. Now if I go and click again, it selects Arkansas there instead of Alabama. Okay, and if I come down and select Arizona, you can see Arizona gets selected down here. Now let's say I want to select multiple states at the same time. So I have Alabama selected. If I hold the control button on my keyboard, I can now add states to that selection. So I can click Arkansas, I can click Arizona, and you can see that all 3 of those are now selected. If I select one by accident, I can keep holding control and click it, and it will remove it. I can also click and drag to select a large number of states, like so. I'm just clicking and dragging along the row, and I'm letting go, and it's selecting anything that I dragged. Okay. Now to clear that selection, I can come up here and deselect all features from the layer, and it will deselect all those. Now, if I only want to see the information for features I've selected, let's say I selected these features here, I can come down to where it says Show All Features, and I can say Show Only Selected Features, and now you'll notice that I have far fewer features. All the features in my view are indeed selected. It tells me there are 56 total features. I have filtered 21. The filter says the view, and I have selected 21. I can come back to show selected features, show all features. Now you can see that the total features is 56, the filtered is 56, and the selected is 21. All right, I'm going to show you another way to select here. So let's start and deselect these. The next way is using the toolbar up here. And this is the selection toolbar. So once again, if you don't see the selection toolbar, make sure it is turned on. Go to View, scroll down to Toolbars, and find the selection toolbar here, and make sure it's turned on, and then you can locate it on your toolbar panel. I'm going to leave this pulled up so that we can see what happens. I'm going to come and I'm going to select this button here, which is, we have the Select Features option here. And we're just going to use the basic Select Features option. Now when I do this, I can click, and it will select the feature I click on. I can click and drag to draw a rectangle, and it will select anything that rectangle intersects. And once I click a new feature, it selects that new feature as opposed to what has already been selected. So let's select a few states here. We'll select a large number over here in the Midwest and East Coast. And now if I go back to my attribute table, you will notice those features are also selected in the attribute table, and I can show only the selected features by going to show selected features, and even though I selected them on the map and not in the attribute table, I can see those features are selected here. This can be very useful for simple things just like seeing how these features might compare to each other and subsetting my data set to specific features. There are more advanced ways you can use this as well. I'm not sure we'll get into those in this tutorial. Let's go ahead now and clear our selection. This can be done from the attribute table with the deselect all features button here, or it can be done up on the toolbar with the deselect features button here. So I will use it on the toolbar. I will click deselect features, and it does so. And now I'm going to go back over to my attribute table and show all features once again, and then I will close the attribute table. Now there are certain things we might want to find out about our vector layer, and we can figure those out from the layer properties. So if we go and we right click or double click on the layer, we can go to the properties here. Now I'm going to close this and show you that if I double click, it also brings up the properties. And there are a lot of tabs over here on the properties. I want to go to, first of all, just the information tab that's at the top. And when I click on that, I get the name of the layer, I get the path to that file, I get the storage type, so this is an Esri shapefile, I get the encoding, I get the CRS, which is the coordinate reference system, also referred to as a projection. Now, this is a very important thing to be aware of when you import geographic data. I'm not going to go over it in depth in this tutorial. For more information, I said you can check out the course I have on this that will go a little more in depth on the coordinate reference system. It gives me the extent of my feature set. It tells me the units of the coordinate reference system, and it tells me how many features are there. And those are kind of the most important things. I can also come down and look at the fields. Now the fields just refers to the columns in the attribute table. It tells me the name of each field or the name of each column, and it tells me the data type of each of those columns. Now a string just means that it's a sentence basically, it's letters. An integer is a whole number. A float or a decimal is a decimal number, or a double can also be a decimal number. It tells me the length of that field, so how many characters are in the string. This is 2, that's a maximum of 8, maximum of 100, etc. So that gives us information. Now also in the Properties tab, and once again you can get to the Properties by right-clicking and going to Properties, or by double-clicking on the layer name. We can also change the symbology of our layer, and that's probably what we're a little bit excited about, is we can then start to make some maps out of this. So if I come down and click on the symbology tab here, I can change things. So if I want to change the color from brown to something else, I can click this drop down here, and I could come and I could change this color to an orange by clicking there. I could come and I could use the color wheel to make this any color I wanted it to be. When I'm done, I click OK, and you can see that the color of my layer changes. Now let's open this back up. I'll double click on it this time to bring the properties back up. Then we have single symbol selected here, which means that our layer will be represented by a single color. I can change this. I can change this to, let's do a categorized. And we're going to choose a value here. And so if I choose a value and I choose by STUSPS, that's the abbreviation, it's going to give me a different color for each unique value of that field. If I click classify, you can see that we're going to get a different color for each state, and those are applied randomly. I will click OK, and you can see there that I now have different colors for my states. Now I want to show you another way to symbolize that we can do with actual data. So I'm going to remove this layer for now, and I'm going to add in another layer. So let's go ahead and go back to the browser. And in the same file here, I'm going to add in, let me see, the state population file that I have here. Now this gives population estimates for the United States. As you can see at first glance, it looks the exact same as the other file, but if I open up the attribute table, you will see that it is different. You can see that we have a lot of the same fields, but if I scroll over, you can see that I now have some other fields here. And this is a file that we create in the course, the Open Source Options course, QGIS for beginners. So if you take that course, you'll have access to all this. And so you can see we have a number of population estimates here, starting in 2010, and then they go up to 2019. So I want to show you how we can symbolize based on data. So what I'll do is I'll go to the properties here, and I will go to, let's see, we want to go back to symbology, we're already there. And now on single symbol, I want to select graduated. And I want to select a value field, so this is going to be a column. I want to select the population estimate column. And I can use this color ramp, or I can change this color ramp. So I can go to all color ramps down here. Notice I just clicked this drop down button, and I can select any of these color ramps that appear here, or I can come down to all color ramps and I can select something different. I could select, let's just go with red and purple. And I have this now. I can change the number of classes. We'll just keep this the same. I can change the mode, which is equal count. I want to make this equal interval. We could also do like pretty break, standard deviation. Let's just try pretty breaks. You can just play along with this and see what's going to work best for you as you do this. We can click OK. And now you can see that my states are colored according to population, and it gives me the population up here. I can go change this. So I can change the number of classes to 7, and I can click OK. And now you'll see we get some more color in at the low end of the spectrum. I could come up and I could change this to even more classes, to 10 if I wanted to. We could change it to natural breaks. I kind of like the pretty breaks, but we'll do natural. And then we'll say OK, and you can see it changes the symbology again, and so it gives us a way to change what that map looks like. Okay, now I've just realized as I was doing that I forgot to show you how to navigate around the map once you get it there, once you get the map pulled up. So I'm sorry we're getting to this late, but we'll get to it now. And this information is going to be on the toolbar here, which is the map navigation toolbar. Once again, if you don't have that toolbar, go to View, Toolbars, and make sure map navigation is checked, and then look for these symbols. Okay, so we have a few different symbols. We have the pan map button, which if I click that, it gives me a hand, and I could left mouse click to drag my map around, or drag it one way or the other. The next button is the pan to map selection. So if I had something selected, let's say I select the state of Montana and I click on that, it will center Montana on the map. Let's clear that selection. And if I don't have anything selected and I click it, nothing happens. The next one is the zoom in tool. And so I can click to zoom in with that. I can also click and drag to zoom in on a specific area. The next one is the zoom out tool. So once again, I can click once to zoom out, or I can click and drag to zoom out on a specific area. Let's go ahead and zoom back in. This one here is the zoom full. So this will zoom to the full extent of the layers I have shown. So let's say I zoom way in on this part of the United States. If I now click zoom full, it takes me out to the full extent of the layers that I have. Now, one thing that we can also do is we can right click and we can click zoom to layer to zoom into the full extent of this layer, and you can see that we have some islands over here, so it doesn't zoom over to this area, but it zooms to the full extent of that layer. I'm just going to zoom back in on the United States there. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do a selection one more time. And we have another, this is the pan map to selection. This is the zoom to selection. So this will zoom in on the area we have selected. Okay. And then we have a zoom to layer button, which will zoom to the layer that we have selected over here. So this OpenStreetMap is now selected, so if I select zoom to layer, it will zoom us out to that full layer, whereas if I select state population and click zoom, it will zoom us in to that layer. Let's go ahead and make sure we deselect any selections we've made. I'm going to go back to the pan tool so I can move the map around. Now, you can also control this with your mouse wheel, so you can scroll your mouse wheel to zoom in or out. And if you hold your mouse wheel down, you click on it, you can pan. Okay? So those are some other simple controls you can do. And once again, I'm sorry that I forgot to bring those up at the beginning, but you should be able to access that now. All right, in the next section of this tutorial, I want to show you how you can create data yourself. And this is how you can create your own shape files. So let's go ahead, and if you have any files added in, go ahead and remove those. So I'm going to remove this layer here. And then just zoom into an area of your map, one that's of interest to you. It doesn't really matter where it is. I'm zooming in on Colorado, and we are in, let's zoom into this area here. Granby, Colorado. Never been there. Don't know much about it, but that's where we're looking at. Okay, and so let's go ahead and create a new layer. The way we can do this is we want to go to Layer and Data Source Manager. Okay, so you can go to Data Source Manager, and we should be able to create a vector layer from here. My apologies, that is incorrect. So we need to go to Layer, Create Layer, and New Shapefile Layer. The other thing you can do is you can come and click the drop down here on the toolbar, the New Shapefile Layer here. Okay, so I'll go to Layer, Create Layer, New Shapefile Layer. So now I need to select a location for this on my drive. So I'm going to select somewhere on my C drive. So I will select C, QGIS, and I'm going to make a new folder to put this in. So I'll make a new folder, and I will call this YouTube. And I'm going to make a point shapefile, so I will call this My Points, and I will click Save. So now I'm going to create this file in the location C, QGIS, YouTube, My Points. I need to select a geometry type. I'm going to select a point geometry. I'm going to select a CRS, a coordinate reference system, and we're going to make this WGS84. EPSG identifier is 4326. And then I need to make sure I have fields, and the fields are those attributes or those columns that are going to be included with my file. And so I have one here, which is the ID. I'm going to make a new one, which is name. So I'm going to give a name to it. It's going to be text data. Okay, and I'm going to add it to the fields list. And I'm going to make another one, which is type. And this is going to be the type of thing that I'm marking. And I'm going to click add to fields list. And we'll leave those both as strings with a length of 80. Let's say I wanted to make a value and I want it to be a decimal number. I would come here and click decimal number, and I can leave these as the defaults and click add to fields list. Then I can click OK. And when I click OK, it's going to add a new feature over here. So let's click OK. And you can see that it has now added my points. And now what I want to do is I want to add points to my points. And to do that, I need to edit it. Edit this layer. And I can turn editing on by going to the editing tool, the digitizing toolbar, and there's this toggle editing button here. I can also access that. If you can't see the toolbar, you can also do this by right-clicking and coming down to toggle editing. Okay, it's a good idea to have the digitizing toolbar up. If you don't have it, remember, go to View, Toolbars, Digitizing, and we can turn this on. So make sure that when you do this, you have my point selected, that it's highlighted in the table of contents, the layers panel, and turn it on, and now you have additional options. Okay, so what you need to do now is click on the add point feature, and now you'll notice that the cursor has changed to be these crosshairs, and now when I click on an area, it will place a point there. So let's zoom in. And I'm going to use my mouse wheel. I'm going to click my mouse wheel to pan. And I'm just going to find some features. Okay. And I'm going to click at this intersection. And I'm going to make the ID 1. The name is going to be some intersection. The type is going to be an intersection. And the value is going to be 2.1. That's just a random number I made up. Okay. Now you can see there's a point there. It's a little hard to see, but it is there. Now let's make another one. I'm going to put it on this building. So ID is 2. The name is building 11. The type is a building. And the value is 11.0. Okay. So I have 2 points there. Let's see if I can find something else to mark as a point. Let's see. Let's find another intersection. So let's mark this intersection. So the ID will make it 3. The name is another intersection. The type is also intersection. And the value is 3.4 or 3.2. Okay, so you can see that I can start to group things together. I can mark things that are like types together. And then I can mark another building somewhere else in town. Maybe over in this area. And we'll mark that one. And I think we're on ID 4. The name is another building. Type is building. And value is 8.7. And we'll say OK. All right, so you can see I've created some points there. You can see I've got points over in this area, a point over in this area. So that's how you can create some points. Now what we need to do is we need to save those changes we've made, save layer edits. And now we need to toggle editing off. Now I can go and I can start to adjust the symbology for my points. So I can open the properties. I'm at the symbology here. I can click on this simple marker. And I can change the fill color to a red. Okay. I can change the stroke style, the outline. Maybe it's a solid line. Maybe I want it to be wider, and I want the outline to be green. Okay. And then maybe I want my simple marker to be something different. And we can, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Click minus. But we'll just keep it a simple marker for now. We could change like a font or a field or an ellipse, but we'll just keep it a simple marker. That makes things easy. I could come down and change this to, well, let's just change it to a triangle. And let's say OK. And now you can see that I have those there. I need it to be bigger though, so let's go back to my points. I'll double click to bring it up. Click on my size and we'll bump this up to 5. Click OK. And now you can see I have those markers out there. All right. So that's how we can create some points. Let's go ahead and make some lines next. We're going to create lines in the same way. We are going to go to Layer, Create Layer, New Shapefile Layer, and we're going to go, and I'm going to save this in the same folder, the YouTube folder. We'll call this My Lines, and we'll click Save. And I'm just going to add one more. I'm going to add a type so we can group things together. I'm going to say Add to Fields List, and change the geometry type here to line. Keep the defaults the same and say OK. Now I have my lines, and I'm going to go ahead, make sure my lines is selected, toggle the editing on, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to come over and click the Add Line feature, zoom in, and I'm going to mark out a street. Now notice every time I click it puts a new vertex on the line, and when I'm done I can right click and it will finish the line, and I can type ID 1. My type is a street. Okay, and I can come do another one over here. We'll do that, and then right click, ID is 2, type is a street. Okay, perfect. And then let's see what other kinds we can do. Let's come do a stream. So we'll click, 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 click. So every time I click, it adds a new vertex to the line. So to make curved lines, you're just going to click, make a lot of little straight lines. So if I zoom in, and let's say I want to curve around this like that, I want to make this curved, I just do a lot of little lines. Okay, then I can right click to finish it, and ID 3, stream, okay. And then I can do another stream segment here, so I can come and I can click, 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 click a lot to round the corner. And right click to finish it, and ID for stream, okay. And now I can save my edits, and I can toggle the editing off, and then I can open up the attribute table here to see what it looks like. So let's open the attribute table, and you can see I have street, stream, stream, street with the ID numbers that go with them. I can come in, I can open up the symbology, I can change this to categorized, so I can symbolize the streets and the streams differently. So the value will be type, and then I can click classify. And when I do that, you'll notice that I have two different values. So my streams, let's double click this and make it a simple line, but I can make the color for the streams blue. And let's make the width like that. And my streets, I can come here, double click that to get it back up, and I'll make my streets, let's make them black, and let's make the width even wider, and say OK. And we can just turn off any other values and say OK. And now you can see my streams and my streets are displayed differently. Okay, I want to show you about raster data real quick. And so we've been working with vector data, which are basically a collection of points. Even our lines, as I showed you, are a collection of points. Raster data are grids. You can do some really cool stuff with both vector and raster data. Raster data can look really cool for symbolization. So I'm going to go import a raster data set. Once again, if you sign up for the course, the QGIS for Beginners course, which is linked in the description, you will have access to all these data and learn how to download these data for yourself. But I'm going to go to my raster folder here, and I am going to import this file here, which is a digital elevation model. Now you can't see it. I'm going to zoom to that layer by right-clicking and zoom to layer. And you can see that this is located over in Idaho. Now this is showing elevation in meters above sea level for this area. And I'm going to pull in another layer here, which is a hillshade, which is also a representation of topography. Not elevation, but topography. So you can see that there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reorder the layers. So I can reorder the layers simply by dragging one under the other. So I can drag this hillshade underneath my DEM. If I get it right, there we go. Now the DEM is on top. And I want to show you a really cool way to symbolize this. But first, I'm going to zoom in and show you what these data are and why we call them gridded data, raster data. It's just like a photograph. If I zoom in, you can see those pixels, right? You can see these lines here. So these pixels have a certain width and a certain height to them, and there's a single value inside of there. I can use the identify tool on a raster just like I would on a vector to click an individual cell. And you can see that it gives me a value which is 2653.4343. That's the value of meters above sea level. So if I click anywhere in here, in this little square, it's going to be the same. When I click over here, the value now changes. Click down here, the value changes. Click within that little raster grid cell, and the value stays the same. But if I click over here, the value once again changes. So these are continuous data that are represented by a grid. So let's close the identify results. And I'm going to zoom back out, select my pan tool again. Okay, now I want to show you a really cool thing you can do with raster data just as far as symbology goes. So remember I have that hillshade shown underneath, and I'll show you what that looks like. I can turn a layer off by checking this box. You can see that hillshade, which kind of shows some representation of the topography. You can see the shading of the hillsides, which is why it's called a hillshade, so you can see where the ridges and the valleys are. Okay, now let's turn this back on. Now I'm going to change the symbology of this raster. Right now it's black and white. I'm going to make this colored. So I'm going to right click, go to properties, and go to the symbology, drag this out, and I'm going to change the render type to single band pseudo color. Now you can see I have this color ramp here. We can select whatever color ramp we want, just as we've done before. I kind of like this, I think, so let's go ahead and try this. I can make the mode continuous. Let's make it quantile, I guess. And let's apply that. Okay. So now you can see the lower elevations are in brown, the higher elevations are in green, and everything in the middle is kind of that white color. I don't like the color ramp as much as I thought I did, so I want to go change that. I'm going to double click, come back to my color ramp. Let's see all the color ramps. And let's try one like yellow, green, and blue. That looks like it ought to be a pretty good one. And I want to switch this. I want to go the other way. So I want the big values to be yellow. So I can come here, click on that drop-down arrow, click Invert Color Ramp, and it does that, and now I can click OK. Okay, that looks pretty neat. Let's go with that one. So you can see the elevation there. Now I want to add a 3D kind of effect to this hillshade. And the way I can do that is by going to the properties once again. And if I go to the transparency tab, I can drag the transparency down. Or I can just write a number in here. So I'm going to make this 60%. And I'm going to click OK. And now you can start to see that hillshade come through, and it gives a really cool effect to that raster layer. So you can see the elevation. You can see the elevation value shown with the hillshade. You can play around and adjust this a little bit. 70% might even look a little better. Let's click OK. And you can see we get a little more color out of it that way. So that's the basics of raster data, of how you can import them and symbolize them. Raster data you can also symbolize in groups, as I've shown you with the vector data. Okay, so I want to focus on one more thing in this tutorial, and that is how to export your map once you have your data symbolized the way you want. And it's pretty easy to do. But let's just go ahead and let's go over to Project, and we want to make a new print layout, and we can lay a map out really nicely this way. So click New Print Layout, and I'm just going to name this Layout 1. It doesn't matter too much what you name it. When you click OK, it's going to open up a new window to lay out your map. Let's click OK. We have this new blank sheet of paper. I want to add my map to it. To do that, I'm going to come click this button over here, which says Add Map. Okay, so let's go click Add Map, and then I'm going to drag a box on it. And there you can see the map that was shown in my data view, where I was actually viewing the layers, and I can lay that out here. So I want this map to cover the whole page, so we'll do it like this. Okay, so now you can see that information. Now we can also add a legend by clicking the Add Legend button over here. So we'll click that, and we'll drag a legend onto the map. And you can see that maybe I don't want to have all these layers because they're not all showing on my map. I can now come over to the Items panel. I can come to my legend, turn Auto Update off, and then I can scroll down, select the layers I do not want to show. I don't need to show the hillshade here. I don't need to show my lines, my points, or OpenStreetMap. I can also change the name of this entry to elevation, and maybe I want to put it in meters. Okay, and so now I have that legend there. I can drag that down in a corner. I can add a scale bar by clicking the scale bar button over here. So we'll click that. We can drag that scale bar on like this. You can see that appears there with the units of kilometers. We can move that down. We can adjust it over here. So we can make our units a fixed width. So we can make this, if I made this 10 kilometers, you can see it changes that. And we can move that over here. So you can see we now have that in units of 10 kilometers. And we can add a north arrow by clicking the north arrow button over here, which is right there. And we'll drag that on in this area there. And we have a north arrow added. We can move that over. And then we can also add a title by clicking on the text option here for a text box. We can drag that across the top and come edit our text and map of Idaho elevation. And then we can change our font by clicking here and coming to configure format, and we can make the size much larger, maybe up to 36, and make it bold and say OK. Then we can drag this out, and we have our map there. So this is a very simple map. I can save this map as an image by clicking the Export as Image button. This is just telling me that the Open Layers the OpenStreetMap base map can have problems exporting as an image. I can just close it, and then I can come and I can go back and save this in my YouTube folder, and this is my Layout 1 map, so I'll click Save, and I will save it, and it's going to create that map as an image for me, and once it's done I can access it. Now as that's creating, I just want to let you know once again that the Open Source Options course will go through all of this and much, much more. The course has over 4.5 hours of video instruction. It costs $25. You can get a $5 discount by signing up for the email list on opensourceoptions.com. I hope you found this video tutorial useful, and I hope it's got you started with QGIS. If so, good luck with the rest of QGIS, and subscribe to the channel for more advanced QGIS tutorials. Now let's just go check that video out real quick. And so if the image, so if I come over here, go to my C drive and go to QGIS and then go to YouTube, you will see I have the layout 1 image here. I can open that image up, and there is a map that I could share with someone else. Back over to QGIS. Once again, thanks for watching. This has been a long tutorial, just about 10 minutes shy of an hour. But please, if you liked it, please subscribe and stay tuned for more QGIS tutorials.